Time, always ticking, never stops. Many people live in a constant struggle against it. But are we really wasting time, or are we just distracting ourselves from what really matters? Leah, a determined young woman, is about to find out. Leah was known for her unwavering energy. From a very young age, she stood out for her determination. A dedicated student, an exemplary employee, and a friend who was always there for her. She seemed to be in constant motion, but still, she felt stagnant. The clock never stopped, but something inside her seemed to be standing still. Leah lived in a big city, surrounded by opportunities. She worked at a promising startup, and at 28, she already held a prominent position. But the weight of her responsibilities was enormous. She worked long hours, rarely allowed herself the luxury of rest, and her mind was always tormented by deadlines, goals, and demands. At night, when she finally allowed herself to lie down, one question wouldn't leave her alone. Is all this worth it? Am I really making the most of my time? Am I just letting life pass me by? This doubt consumed her, and it was in search of answers that she decided to visit Monk Jin, a master famous for his simple and profound reflections. Monk Jin lived in an isolated monastery in the mountains. The simplicity of the place contrasted with Leah's fast-paced life. Jin was a middle-aged man, with piercing eyes and slow gestures. His calm posture seemed an affront to the frenetic pace that Leah knew. He welcomed her into a small courtyard, where silence seemed to be an integral part of the wisdom of that place. Leah began to speak bluntly, as was her custom. Monk Jin, I feel like I'm wasting time, even though I do so many things. I work, I study, I take care of everything, but at the end of the day, I'm exhausted and empty. What am I doing wrong? Jin observed Leah for a moment and answered with another question. When you're running around, Leah, what are you looking for? She stopped, not sure how to answer. After a moment of hesitation, she said, I think I'm looking for fulfillment, a purpose. I want to feel like I'm moving forward. Jin then asked another question, and what does moving forward mean to you? Leah frowned, trying to understand what the monk meant. Moving forward means achieving more, reaching goals, being recognized for what I do. Jin nodded calmly. And do you feel like you've achieved those goals? She sighed wearily. Some yes, but it seems like the more I achieve, the more distant the feeling of being complete becomes. Jin smiled slightly, as if she had been waiting for that answer. What if the problem isn't how much you run, but where you're running to? Have you ever thought about where you're really going? Leah was silent for a while. The monk's question seemed simple, but the answer wasn't. Jin continued. When you plant a seed, Leah, do you run around it hoping it will grow faster? Or do you water it and leave it alone, knowing that time will take care of the rest? Leah shook her head. Of course I don't run. I know that growth takes time. Exactly, Jin replied. But have you been treating yourself like that seed? Have you been giving yourself time to grow? Or are you running around in circles, hoping everything will happen faster than it should? Leah, still confused, thought about it. I don't think I've ever stopped to think about it that way. Jin looked up at the sky. Time is not the enemy, Leah. It only becomes a burden when we forget that we need to be present to enjoy it. Tell me, when was the last time you simply stopped and breathed without thinking about goals or deadlines? She shifted uncomfortably. I don't even remember. Jin nodded, as if he already knew the answer. Maybe the time you think you are wasting is exactly what you need most. Time for yourself. Time to be present. Leah left the monastery that day with a new perception. It wasn't the time she was wasting, but rather the opportunity to truly live it. Her constant running wasn't getting her anywhere because deep down, she didn't know where she wanted to go. The silence that used to bother her now seemed like an opportunity. What about you? Are you running after something you don't even know what it is? Maybe like Leah, you just need to stop, breathe, and remember that time when used well is not wasted. It flourishes like a seed that grows at the right pace. Time is not an adversary to be defeated. It is a silent companion that reminds us every second of the importance of being present. If life seems like an endless race, maybe it's time to ask, where am I running to anyway?